Welcome to Lying and Cheating. Please like this video and subscribe. Lying and Cheating. I've been married to Emily for 13 years. If someone had told me, back when we exchanged vows, that this would be my reality, I would have laughed. After all, we were the couple everyone looked up to, the couple that seemed like they had it all together. But life has a cruel way of showing you that you don't always know the people closest to you. And recently, I discovered a truth so devastating that it made me question everything about our life together. For nearly a decade of our marriage, Emily hadn't been loyal. The signs were there, but I was too blind to see them. I should have seen the cracks forming years ago. The late nights, the sudden disinterest in spending time together, and the way she seemed to pull away from me emotionally. It all makes sense now, but at the time, I chalked it up to the normal wear and tear of a long relationship. People get busy. Life happens, right? But this was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was 2 years ago when I first stumbled upon the truth. It wasn't anything dramatic like walking in on her or finding suspicious messages in real time. No, it was more subtle, more insidious than that. I was preparing an old phone of Emily's to give to our eldest kid. It had been sitting in a drawer for years, forgotten and gathering dust. The plan was simple: wipe the data, hand it down, move on. But nothing about that day turned out simple. As I was clearing out the phone, I noticed a note saved in the memos, an email address and a password. My first instinct was to brush it off, but curiosity got the better of me. Why was this information saved on a phone that hadn't been in use for so long? So, without much thought, I logged in. What I found left me paralyzed. The email wasn't just any email. It belonged to a completely different persona, one that Emily had created. At first, I thought maybe it was some old account she used for social media or something harmless like that. But as I dug deeper, I realized this was far from innocent. This persona, this fake identity, was being used to post ads on Craigslist, ads where she was selling her body to strangers. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the emails and chats. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. I was hoping, praying that somehow, this wasn't real. But the messages were undeniable. Dozens of chats with at least 15 to 20 different men, all eagerly responding to her posts. These weren't just casual conversations, either. They were explicit, raw, and horrifying. There were pictures exchanged, nudes, things I had never seen from her, not in the 13 years we'd been together. Pictures she would never have sent to me. And the worst part? The timeline. These messages dated back to when she was 3 months pregnant with our second child. She had been doing this while I was at work, while I thought we were planning for the future of our growing family. And yet, there she was, engaging in this sordid double life behind my back. I felt my stomach turn. How could someone I shared a life with, someone I loved, do something like this? It didn't make any sense. The more I read, the worse it got. It wasn't just 1 or 2 messages. It was an entire network of lies. She had been doing this for months, possibly even longer, and I had been completely oblivious. I don't know if it was denial, if I simply didn't want to believe that the woman I married was capable of something like this. Either way, the truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't look away. When I finally confronted her, I expected her to deny it, to at least offer some kind of explanation that might make sense. But what she said left me even more stunned than the discovery itself. She looked at me with this detached expression and told me she didn't remember any of it. Her excuse? Pregnancy brain. That was the explanation I was given for the months of betrayal, pregnancy brain. As if being pregnant could somehow erase the memory of selling yourself to strangers. It was absurd, insulting even. But here's where it gets even more messed up. By the time I found out about all of this, it had already happened 7 years prior. 7 years had gone by without me knowing a thing. All that time, I thought we were living a normal life, raising our kids, building our future. And in reality, I was living in a bubble of ignorance. Emily had been carrying this secret for nearly a decade, and she had no intention of ever telling me. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that she did it or the fact that she could so easily keep it from me for so long. I felt like an idiot, but part of me wanted to salvage whatever was left of our marriage. I convinced myself that, since it had happened years ago, maybe we could move past it. Maybe we could get through this if we tried hard enough. So, like a fool, I suggested counseling. We made it to one session. One. After that, it was clear that I was the only one trying. Emily seemed checked out, uninterested in fixing what had been broken. Looking back, I think she had already made her peace with the situation long before I ever found out. I was just catching up to the reality she had been living in for years. Our relationship had been on shaky ground ever since. Trust, once shattered, is almost impossible to rebuild. Every time I looked at her, I couldn't help but wonder what else she had hidden from me. How much more was I not seeing? And the thing is, once you lose that trust, everything becomes a question mark. Every text, every late night, every unexplained absence, it all becomes suspect. But here's the thing. Despite everything, I stayed. I stayed because of the kids, because of the history, because part of me still wanted to believe that we could fix this. But deep down, I knew the damage was too great. Our marriage was like a ship that had hit an iceberg, and no matter how hard I tried to patch the holes, we were sinking. I don't know why I'm telling this story now, why I'm putting it out there for the world to see. Maybe I'm hoping for some kind of closure, or maybe I just need to get it off my chest. But one thing I do know is that this kind of betrayal cuts deep. It leaves scars that never fully heal. And the worst part? You never see it coming. You think you know someone. You think you're building a life together. But in the end, you're just two strangers living under the same roof. Two people pretending to be something they're not. And eventually, that illusion shatters, and you're left standing in the rubble, wondering how you ever got here in the first place. Just when I thought I had seen the worst of it, life decided to throw another curveball my way. I thought I had unraveled all the lies, that I had reached the bottom of the barrel of my wife's betrayals. But 3 weeks ago, I learned there was more, so much more. This time, the truth didn't come from snooping through old devices or stumbling across forgotten emails. No, this time, the truth found me. It came from an unexpected source, someone I hadn't thought about in years, Jessica, one of Emily's old friends. They used to be inseparable, two peas in a pod. Wherever Emily went, Jessica wasn't far behind. And then, without warning, they had fallen out of touch, or so I thought. The last I heard, Jessica had moved out of state, and they simply drifted apart. But there was more to that story too. Jessica reached out to me out of the blue, dropping a message in my inbox. When I saw her name pop up, my stomach dropped. You ever get that feeling? Like you know bad news is coming, even before you hear it? That was me, sitting there, staring at her name. My finger hovered over the message for a moment before I finally clicked it. And boy, did I regret that. She didn't waste any time. Jessica confessed that she had been covering for Emily for years, lying to me, making excuses for Emily's disappearances. Whenever I asked Emily where she'd been or why she was out so late, Jessica was the one who provided the alibis, the lies that I had accepted at face value. But Jessica had reached her breaking point. She couldn't take the guilt anymore. She couldn't stand by and watch Emily continue to hurt me, to lie to me, while she played her role as the enabler. "I'm so sorry, man," Jessica wrote. "I didn't know how to tell you, but I couldn't keep it up. You deserve to know." It turns out Emily had been sleeping around for years, far longer than I ever imagined. This wasn't just a one-time fling or a moment of weakness. No, this was a lifestyle. Emily had been living a double life, and I was none the wiser. I felt like a complete fool. Every time I thought I had finally uncovered the last of her betrayals, there was more. Always more. And each new revelation hurt worse than the last. Jessica didn't go into every single detail, thank God for that. But there was one story she insisted I needed to hear. It was about 2019, a year I remember because things had been especially tense between Emily and me. We had just come off a rocky patch, or so I thought, and I was trying to keep things together for the sake of the kids. Meanwhile, Emily had met some guy at a local weed dispensary. From the way Jessica described it, Emily had been infatuated with him from the start. The guy was younger than me, maybe by a few years, and good-looking in that scruffy, bad boy kind of way that I'd never been. He worked at the dispensary, and Emily would make up excuses to go there more often than usual, just to see him. According to Jessica, Emily was obsessed. She talked about him nonstop, thought about him day and night. It wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown affair. For months, they carried on behind my back. Emily would sneak out to meet him while I was at work, Or sometimes she'd pretend she was running errands just to grab an hour with him. It made me sick to think about it. Sick to my stomach that while I was busting my ass trying to provide for our family, she was out there living some fantasy with another man. Eventually, though, the guy found out about me. He learned that Emily wasn't just some single woman looking for a good time. She was married, with kids, and a husband at home who had no idea what was going on. To his credit, once he found out, he told her it was over. He wanted nothing to do with a married woman, didn't want to be part of her lies. But before they called it quits, they spent one last night together. One last betrayal, as if everything before hadn't been bad enough. Jessica's words rattled around in my head like stones in a can. I could barely think straight. I felt like I was hearing about someone else's life, not my own. This couldn't be happening to me, not again. I had already confronted Emily about her past affairs, the Craigslist ads, the messages, the cheating while she was pregnant with our second child. And like an idiot, I had tried to move past it. I had convinced myself that we could make it work, that things would get better. But now, here I was, staring down another betrayal. After my conversation with Jessica, I couldn't let it go. I had to know more, to find out if there was any truth to what she was saying. So, I did what I never thought I'd do. I went through Emily's things. I searched her closet, her drawers, anywhere I thought she might hide something. And that's when I found it, her journal. I didn't even know Emily kept a journal. But there it was, tucked away in a corner of our closet, buried under a pile of old clothes. My hands were shaking as I opened it, flipping through the pages. I felt like an intruder, like I was reading something I wasn't supposed to see. But I couldn't stop myself. I had to know the truth. And there, in black and white, was the story Jessica had told me. Emily had written about the guy from the dispensary, how they met, how she felt about him. Her words were raw, honest in a way she had never been with me. She wrote about how he made her feel alive, like she hadn't felt in years. She described their meetings in detail, their conversations, their physical connection. And then she wrote about that final night, the night after he found out about me. She wrote about how they had slept together one last time, knowing it would be the end. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear that journal apart, to throw it in her face and demand answers. But what good would it do? I already knew the truth. There was no taking it back, no erasing what she had done. The worst part? I had his full name now. I knew who he was. The man who had come between us, the man who had stolen what little was left of my marriage, was no longer just a faceless stranger. I could track him down if I wanted to, confront him, demand an explanation, but what would that accomplish? He wasn't the one who had lied to me. He wasn't the one who had broken our vows. That was Emily, and no confrontation with him would change that. As I sat there, holding her journal, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved for 13 years, was a stranger. She had been living a life I didn't recognize, and I was just a bystander, oblivious to the truth. I had trusted her, believed in her, and she had taken that trust and shattered it into a million pieces. I don't know where to go from here. Every new revelation feels like another nail in the coffin of our marriage, another blow I'm not sure I can recover from. But I keep going. I keep digging, hoping that somehow I'll find something that makes sense of all this. But the more I uncover, the more I realize that there may not be an end to it. For all I know, there are more lies, more betrayals, waiting to be uncovered. And I don't know if I can handle it when they come. Then I learned something that would change everything again. Emily was involved in an affair with an ex-coworker of hers. This wasn't just a quick fling. It lasted somewhere between 6 to 8 months. I couldn't believe it. All those late nights she claimed she spent working late or enjoying a few drinks with her colleagues. Now, they felt like another betrayal. Each alibi she had used over the years began to unravel in my mind. My heart sank as I tried to recall all the times I had trusted her without question, all the times I had defended her when others had expressed doubt. I had been so naive. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the bombshell dropped. Emily had also been seeing a guy she met on Bumble. For 2 years, she had maintained this relationship, going on overnight camping and hiking trips with him, all under the guise of spending time with her friends. And guess who her cover was? None other than her now ex-friend, Jessica. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. How many times had she lied to my face, using people around her to mask her deceit? I was overcome with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, heartbreak, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. It was as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet, and I was left standing in the rubble of what used to be my life. The memories of happy moments we had shared began to feel like cruel jokes played by fate. Every family trip, every anniversary celebration, every quiet moment on the couch watching TV together, all tainted by the truth I now knew. Fueled by a mixture of desperation and rage, I finally decided to confront her. Armed with every shred of evidence I had gathered, texts, emails, and her own journal entries, I laid it all out in front of her, hoping for at least a glimmer of honesty. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking slightly. The moment felt monumental, like a dam was about to break. But to my utter disbelief, she flatly denied everything. It was as if I was watching a twisted play unfold, and I was the only one who knew the truth. "This is all forged evidence," she shot back, her tone defensive. I was left speechless. How could she look me in the eye and lie like that? I pressed her, desperate for a crack in her facade, but instead of coming clean, she doubled down. After what felt like an eternity of back and forth, she begrudgingly admitted to half of it, but then quickly denied everything again. The cycle of denial and half-truths swirling around us like a toxic fog. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was drowning in her lies, and each new revelation felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. It was clear to me that I was fighting a losing battle, trying to salvage something that had been shattered beyond repair. I was exhausted, not just from the confrontation but from years of uncertainty and doubt. How could I keep pretending that everything was okay when it was falling apart right in front of me? Finally, I reached my breaking point. This past Monday, I handed her the divorce papers. The moment was surreal. I had imagined this scene in my head so many times, and yet nothing could have prepared me for the reality of it. The look on her face was a blend of shock and disbelief, as if I had suddenly turned into a stranger. "You can't be serious," she stammered, her voice thick with emotion. But I was serious. I had reached the end of my rope, and I was done. Watching her read through the papers felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders, but it also brought a wave of sadness crashing over me. This was it. After 13 years of marriage, after all we had built together, it was coming to an end. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I had finally made the decision to stop living a lie, to break free from the chains of deceit that had bound me for so long. But it also meant saying goodbye to the dreams we once shared, to the life we had built together. In the days that followed, I found myself walking through a haze. Friends and family reached out to me, some offering their unwavering support, while others expressed disbelief that things had escalated to this point. But it was the messages I received online that shocked me the most. Some people had the audacity to ask if I would share Emily's nude pregnant photos. I was horrified. How could anyone think that was appropriate? The sheer disrespect for both Emily and me left me reeling. It was a stark reminder of how deeply our personal lives had been exposed, how vulnerable I felt in the wake of these revelations. Despite the chaos, I found small glimmers of hope in unexpected places. A few days after I filed for divorce, I received a message from Jessica, the friend who had initially reached out to me. She wanted to meet up to talk things over. I was hesitant. I had mixed feelings about involving her in this mess, but curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly have to say that I didn't already know? When we finally met for coffee, I was surprised by her honesty. She looked genuinely remorseful, and for the first time, I saw her not just as Emily's accomplice but as a woman who had been hurt, too. Jessica revealed that she had been carrying the weight of guilt for so long. She had felt like a pawn in Emily's game, and it hurt her to know she had contributed to my pain. As we spoke, there was an unexpected connection. Two people hurt by the same person, finding solidarity in our shared experiences. It was refreshing, even healing, to talk to someone who understood the complexities of our situation. But even as I began to find some clarity in my life, the emotional roller coaster wasn't over yet. As I began to focus on my own healing, I stumbled upon a community support group for those going through similar experiences. I found solace in the stories of others, people who had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and had come out on the other side stronger. Listening to them reminded me that I wasn't alone, that there was a path forward even when everything felt hopeless. I started to take care of myself, rediscovering my passions, running, hiking, and even journaling my thoughts. I poured my emotions onto the page, finding catharsis in expressing the turmoil inside me. It was a way to reclaim my narrative, to assert control over my life after years of feeling powerless. But just when I thought I was finding my footing, another unexpected twist came. A week after I filed for divorce, Emily reached out to me. Her tone was surprisingly contrite, filled with apologies and promises to change. "I've made terrible mistakes," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to lose you." For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope, but then reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Could I really trust her again? After everything? As we spoke, I could see the desperation in her eyes, but the pain of betrayal lingered in my heart. I realized that, despite her pleas, I was no longer the same person. The trust that had once bound us was gone, replaced by a void of uncertainty. I wanted to believe her, but my heart knew better. "I can't do this anymore, Emily," I said, my voice steady yet filled with emotion. "You've broken my trust in a way I can't begin to repair. I have to put myself and the kids first." Her sobs echoed in the quiet room, a haunting reminder of the life we had once shared. But I stood my ground. This was my moment to take control of my future, to prioritize my own well-being and that of my children. In the days that followed, I reflected on what I wanted for my life moving forward. It wouldn't be easy. There would be pain, healing, and perhaps even new beginnings. But I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I wanted to show my kids that life could be rebuilt, that even in the darkest moments, there was a chance for light to shine through. Though I didn't know what the future held, I felt a newfound sense of strength within me. I was determined to rise from the ashes of this heartbreak, to find joy again, and perhaps, one day, to find love. The journey ahead would be challenging, but it was mine to navigate, and I would face it with courage. Thanks for watching my story. I recommend checking out one of my past stories. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like.